In the city of Abeokuta, a city located in southwest Nigeria well known for its rocky terrain, there once lived two young lovers, Adejimi and Olanike, the bread seller couples. Adejimi was a very hardworking and ambitious young man in his late 20s while Nike, his girlfriend, was in her mid-20s. They had both met while studying in the same higher institution, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria. Adejimi was in his final year while Olanike was in her second. They had 2 years of friendship before they eventually made their dating relationship official. The connection was easy because fortunately they both lived in the same town, Abeokuta. Jimi lost his dad when he was just 3 years old. Being the only child of his parents, his mom had refused to marry anyone else for about 20 years before she died of leukemia, blood cancer, at age 46. Adejimi was 23 at that time. Life was so miserable. His mom was everything to him, especially since he had no other siblings. He had to take over the bread factory business which was left to his mom by his dad. The bread bakery was named by his late dad as Royal Loaf. His mom did a great job of taking the bakery from a 4-staff bakery to a 20-staff type. Royal Loaf had fast become one of the most popular breads in Ogun State. Fortunately, he was already in his final year when this incident happened. Jimi had no option than to take over his family business in order to survive his final year expenses. A couple of months later he saw Olanike for the first time. They had both met at the Ogun State Student Association annual bursary meeting inside the school's amphitheater. Jimi was one of the executives for the association, so it was easier for him to meet and have a short conversation with Nike, who was attending the union meeting for the first time. They both had an immediate likeness for each other, as Jimi is naturally a very funny guy when he chooses to be. They graduated from just being casual friends to being very close, especially after Jimi lost his mom. She was there for him as she could easily relate to his situation. Olanike was an orphan too. She was brought up at an orphanage home before she decided to be on her own at age 18. She doesn't have an idea how either of her parents look like. She was found by some passers-by at the bank of the Ogun River just shortly after she was born, possibly dropped by her parent. Jimi graduated from school, went on the NYSC, which is Nigeria's compulsory 1 year of service mandated for all graduates. And since he couldn't get any good job with his certificates, he had to keep working on his family bread business, Royal Loaf. By this time he and Nike had already started dating, and everyone close to them knew about the beautiful love between them. Shortly after Nike finished her NYSC too, she had no option but to join her fiancé, as they were now engaged and started living together in the bread bakery business. The business went well for a while until some months later when one of the big machines in the company got damaged. It wasn't reparable, so they had to use all they had in savings to buy a new one. This affected their production and payment of staff for a while. They both tried to go for different interviews again, but there was no company hiring. Months after months they kept managing with each other. Things were not so good financially, but they kept managing and overworking themselves at the bakery. One fateful evening, Adejimi received a call from one of his mother's brothers, Baba Adegbero. He told Jimi that he had been trying to reach him for a couple of days. He mentioned that Jimi's late father's brother, Uncle Mike, who had been in the United States for about 26 years, had been calling to get in contact with Jimi. Jimi never got to meet him because Mike left Nigeria the same month Jimi's mom gave birth to him. He was the only sibling of Jimi's dad. He had been in America for a long time, but Jimi's mom had always told him he had an uncle in the United States. The next day, he was able to talk to Jimi, and that was when he told Jimi of his intentions to assist him by sponsoring his relocation to the United States. Jimi was so excited, and Olanike was even more happy for him. Within a few months, Jimi got his travel papers and visa. Olanike cried so bitterly, as she was definitely going to miss him so badly. Adejimi was all she had. In the course of preparing to travel, they had to sell some of the equipment and machimes in the bakery again in order to pay for Jimi's visa fees. Jimi got to America and Olanike was left with nothing to manage. Jimi promised to do all within his power to always send money to her and would eventually bring her to the United States to join him too. On getting to United States, after all verifications and confirmations made at the point of entry, Jimi was allowed to enter United States through the George Bush International Airport in Houston, Texas. He called his uncle's phone number again, as he had instructed him to do, but the number was not reachable anymore. At a time the number got switched off. He was so tired and worried. He had just 50,000 naira left on him, which was roughly $60 at that point. That couldn't even get him in hotel, talk less of being enough to feed him for 3 days. At this time his phone battery was almost drained. Watch out for the concluding part of this story. My name is Don Barry. I tell beautiful stories. Don't forget to like, share, leave a comment, subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you can be notified when I drop a new post. Thank you.